Trailer Rewind, a monthly conversation about movies you may have missed in theaters that are now available to watch at home on streaming services. Each month, we dig into the archives and watch a film that Pete and Andy talked about in their trailer picks. We watch it and have a very spoilery conversation about it. Today, we are talking about 999. This was Andy's pick from November 13th, 2015. Today is May 10th, and 999 is available on Amazon Prime. Before we go any further, you should check out our ever-expanding back catalog for this show and its sibling shows over at thenextreel.com. If you've stumbled upon us, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast app or follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Next Reel. And it doesn't matter if you've just discovered us or if you've been listening for years, you can become part of the Next Reel community for as little as $1 a month. With your support as a patron on patreon.com/thenextreel, you get invited into our online Discord discussion group where there's always an engaging conversation about films. Plus, you get exclusive weekly Saturday matinee episodes hosted by a changing rotation from the Filmboard gang of thugs, talking about movie news, trailer picks, and lists.
Right now, everybody's still talking about Infinity War. Spoiling Infinity War. But it's still a good conversation about it.
It is. It's going to be the movie of the summer to talk about.
For sure. Yes.
That's going to be the one. There'll be some surprise. I'm sure that'll catch us off guard. We'll see what happens with Solo coming later this month.
Don't forget Deadpool 2.
As I mentioned, last Saturday matinee, there are so many things coming out this summer. I got to make sure I stay ahead of it. Otherwise, I'm going to end up behind and being ridiculed and mocked online because I haven't seen something. So
out here, there is no good and there is no bad. To survive out here, you gotta out-monster the monster.
Can you do that?
Give him hell, baby.
Bye, Dad.
Everybody listen up!
Marcus, you got a new partner.
Allow me to introduce Chris.
Hey, so can we talk about this?
Hell no.
Well, for 999, when Andy picked this, he said he was impressed by the cast and that it looked like an intense crime thriller that he was really looking forward to seeing.
The cast is huge.
Oh, this cast
amazing
is so. You've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe represented. You've got the DC Cinematic Universe represented. You've got the Walking Dead represented. So there's a ton of familiar faces in this one. So yeah, what was really interesting was that we had scheduled this to be our February 2016 film board.
Yeah.
But there was some last minute scheduling changes and we ended up reviewing Hail Caesar.
I remember.
Instead.
I was excited about 999 at that point.
So I was just going to ask you, would you have preferred we discuss 999 on the film board in place of Hail Caesar now that you've seen both?
Nope. No, not at all. I'm really glad we didn't do this movie for it, for a number of reasons. Well, first of all, Hail Caesar wasn't super great. But it was good. It was a Coen Brothers film, and it was kind of light. It was satirical. It was about Hollywood. It was kind of neat in the way that they wove the story. It was special. And I'm talking about all the adjectives I'd applied to Hail Caesar just because none of those adjectives can be applied to 999. There are interesting things about this movie. It's extremely intense. It would have been way too much for me to see in the theater. In watching it here at home, just the betrayal and the terrible things that happened to characters on their face in this movie, I had to walk away multiple times. I think it was a grand total of 7 times that I paused it. I walked into the next room until I could just take a heavy breath and come back to it, just because there was so much intensity, and it is a police film, but it's the cop drama in the truest sense of the word, and I feel like it was really trying to be The Departed. It's in that realm of betrayal, that kind of thing, but this is nowhere near as well executed as a movie like The Departed, and wasn't as well put together as a movie like Hail Caesar. So yeah, I'm glad we didn't do it because it would have been really hard for me to watch in the theater. How about you?
Yeah, I wondered why we didn't do this, at 999 as the film board, and I kept thinking afterwards when we moved it, I kept wanting to come back to it so that I could see it, because there was something promising in the trailer, and interest in the cast that merited it being on the film board. And so I always thought, well, I'm going to get around to watching it. And then it came and went in theaters. And so it sort of fell a little bit lower on my list. And so when it came up as a potential trailer rewind, I thought, well, here's I have no excuse now. We'll put this in the rotation. We'll watch this. And I sat down and film started. I was like, okay. I'm looking at this cast. I'm like, all right, this is good. Okay.
Those names flying past you at the beginning of the movie. You're just like, wow.
Yeah,
here it comes.
This is an amazing cast. We've got Chiwetel Ejiofor, we've got Casey Affleck, Anthony Mackie, Woody Harrelson, Aaron Paul,
Kate Winslet,
Gal Gadot, Norman Reedus. We've got director John Hilcoat, which was a name that I recognized because I had seen The Road, and I enjoyed that. And that's a really heavy and intense film, and so I thought this looks really promising. And then the movie kept going, and it kept going, and everything kept telling me this should be work. It was the exact opposite of a situation where you say something is greater than the sum of its parts. This film was like less than the sum of its parts. You've got all these things that should make this work, and I was bored. At one point, I just like, I should be caring. There should be some interest to keep me pulled through this movie. And I just stopped caring. I thought, why am I bored?
It's strangely thin. It doesn't need to be thin, but this could be, and I almost never say this about movies, but this could be a case of where everyone in it is so relatively large from an acting perspective that they didn't really know who to put the onus on for anyone, because there's so many people who could be your main character here, right? I mean, and they actually feel like they're passing the ball back and forth to the different people as you go through the film. The different acts have different people, but no one's a protagonist. No one is good. Everyone's kind of just annoying and bad. Like you don't really feel bad for anyone. You kind of just want it to, I guess maybe Casey Affleck for a time, but then unfortunately after last year's Oscars, we all know that he's a crap in real life. So it's hard for me to like him in this movie now too. So, but all these things. And then you've got Woody Harrelson, who's playing a little bit of a caricature in his role, right? He's this Southern detective who's kind of rough around the edges. He's even maybe a little bit corrupt. He does drugs on the job, that kind of thing. And then he's kind of playing it where early in the film I was like, wow, he's actually got a take on what he's doing. But by the end of it, he just feels kind of like, he feels like a comic book character. And the same could be said about Kate Winslet. She doesn't do a Russian accent poorly necessarily, but by the end of the film, when you just don't have a whole lot of meat there, you've got all these actors who are really doing things with their roles, but because there's no focus from the story's perspective, you don't really become emotionally detached to any of them. And that really hurts the film altogether.
Yes, exactly. This was a story that was reaching to be something nearly epic. Just there's so many storylines going on that it was trying to capture something really large and weighty, but it was the exact opposite of that. And I could see how things were being structured. Okay, this is how things are going to play out. This is what's going to make sense. I can see how it's going to start to come together, but I don't care. And so to set things up, we've got, a group of guys who are, from the beginning, we learned they've got to pull off these jobs for this, Russian mob. And so there's some reason why they're, indebted to them for something that we don't know, but they've got to do. So they do the one last job, and then it's like, well, no, there's actually one more. So I thought, okay, I've seen this before, so we've got to get the team together again. They think they're done, so they're going to have to do the last job. So clearly something's going to go wrong because it's the unexpected job. It's going to be something bigger. And this is where we get the title, which is the 999, because the only way they're going to have enough time to pull off this big job is it's going to take them 10 minutes, and they know the police response is going to be sooner than that. But if an officer is shot, which is a 999, then all the police go there. So then I get to the point where, oh, okay, who's sort of the sacrificial lamb? Who is this? Is it going to be just They're going to go after some random cop. Oh no, I can start to see the pieces. It's going to be Casey Affleck. He's the new partner for Anthony Mackie's character, and there's tension between them. And so I can see how this is starting to move. And I thought, okay, let's see how this plays out. But I don't know.
But
in some ways,
Affleck
I want
isn't introduced until like 20 minutes in, and then he
Exactly.
gets his job, and he's just,
Yes.
he's not really a hero. The only thing that makes him really redeeming is that, I guess maybe that he's a veteran, or that Woody Harrelson is his uncle. I mean, there's just really nothing.
He's got a kid. He's got a
because
kid.
he's got a kid, but
Yeah.
so does Chiwetel Ejiofor. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, you, as a viewer, you don't really know where to go. Your emotions are just kind of pulled in all directions, and it just leaves you leaving flat altogether.
Well, yeah, because you start with the group led by Chiwetel, and you thought, I think,
He's the guy.
okay,
He's my hero. Yeah.
he's the guy. And then as we realize that he's doing this because his son is sort of being withheld from him as leverage, I thought, okay, father, you're reuniting with son. I've got a reason to root for this guy. But then that story, we sort of shift away from that as we get into things with Aaron Paul, his brother. Russell, played by Norman Reedus, is killed, and he's in this downward spiral that's not really explained, other than, yes, he lost his brother, but okay, so the drugs and the drinking and all of that. So are we focusing on his story? And then we've got Anthony Mackie and Casey Affleck, and that situation, it was almost like ADD. It just couldn't keep itself focused on one story enough. And I'm fine with a movie that's got multiple storylines that I can follow, but I didn't know what the lead story that I'm supposed to be following, because you've got your main story and the others that are going to support and feed into that. But because we keep shifting and no story stands out as the strongest, like, here's my main character. And by the time we get to the end, we come back to Chiwetel and his son. I thought, oh, this was his story, perhaps, all the way through. But I didn't have a sense of that because he disappears for so much of the movie in the middle. And I can't really root for the guy.
Right. And then, I mean, jumping ahead to the end, it's like everybody pretty much, it's one of those stories where every end just kind of or every story just comes to a bit of an end. And that's not, it's so unsatisfying throughout, and it doesn't become more satisfying to the end. There's maybe one big switch when if you feel like someone gets shot accidentally, but it just, it didn't execute. All it did was make me feel uncomfortable in the scenes where people were lying or going to come up or going to be ambushed, which happens a number of times in this film. And then I will tell you that, there were a number of really big logic problems with the film, in that when they execute the 999, which they say is an officer is down. And I'm familiar with police codes, and I will tell you that I've never heard a 999 responded that way. So that's interesting to me, first of all. But then as they execute a 999 to pull all the police to one side of the town, and you've got Woody Harrelson gets some sort of mixed message that his nephew, Casey Affleck, is the one that's involved. So then they're rushing and there's this long police chase for all the cops to get to the one side of town to go to this 999. But the whole way there, he doesn't know whether or not Casey Affleck has been shot. And there's no way that they have a radio and they wouldn't be able to confirm that on the way they're going. So you've got this entire emotional, stressful suspense thing built up to execute the major point of the story that's completely not possible. Well, I guess it's possible, but why wouldn't they? Would have a radio with them? They're police officers. They would be hearing traffic as they go, and they weren't doing that, which is really bothersome. That was the only emotional part for the film for me, because I'm feeling this sort of uncle-nephew relationship. So I got emotional there, but I was either uncomfortable or that, and otherwise I was just confused by most of what was going on in this movie.
I forgot to mention Clifton Collins Jr. in this as well, who sort of near the end of the film reveals he's maybe, there's no good guys in this movie, but
right. There's none.
Yeah. Everybody's bad, corrupt. People die for various, nonsensical reasons throughout.
Maybe Casey Affleck is a good guy, but he was introduced so terribly. Yeah. It doesn't work. Yeah.
So I was really disappointed with this because I saw such potential in the beginning. Because I did enjoy the first sort of bank heist, and it plays along with what you expect. But there were some things that I hadn't seen before. For example, they are going to mislead everybody because when they go in, they're wearing masks and they're going to speak either with Spanish accents or in Spanish to sort of throw people off the trail of who this group is, which I thought was smart. But then you get the typical, somebody's going to grab some of the bait cash. And then when you're in the car, boom, thing erupts with smoke, whatever in the car. And I don't know how those things work. If it's a timing thing, if it's a certain proximity to the, I don't know, but it was a lot. And it's this red all over them. And
those are all the movie posters too. They're all the red
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything. That was so much in the material. So I thought, okay. And there's a scene shortly thereafter where Anthony Mackie, who is a police officer, is in sort of the morning meeting and he sees he's got some of it on his pants. And I thought, oh, okay. So this is going to become, it's setting up Casey Affleck is going to figure out that it's some corrupt cops that are doing this, pulling off these. No, it's not going to become that.
They dropped it.
Yeah.
Immediately.
It set up things that it didn't deliver on. To be one type of film and turn into something else. And then a cast that's capable of delivering really powerful performances that just wasn't given a lot to work with at all from this cast. I thought at least one person would have something that would lift that performance above everybody else, but it was all just really mediocre. Nobody went 110%. Like, is Kate Winslet going to be just a scenery chewing, raging maniac no, she's playing the sort of, I'm the logical, smart, rational maniac, which can be sometimes more threatening, particularly because she's going to use his son against him, but
consistently.
It didn't, Gal Gadot seemed more cruel to him. And I didn't even understand that relationship there's so much that's unspoken and alluded to in dialogue.
And I do want to say that that's something that I usually like in films. And because they weren't spoon feeding us the dialogue, I want to give the movie credit for that because they did a good job of showing us and not telling us the things that did happen in the story. It's not something that we had to have it explained to us. So that I think they did well, especially with a story that's this convoluted. That being said, there was all this Deus Ex Machina and there were all these things kind of written in to get us there. And that might be because they were so afraid of putting exposition on screen. One of the other things that really bothered me is that whenever it seemed that they were doing a creative shot, mechanically now, talking about camera placement, the camera was always placed in a place where there was no point of view from anyone. So it was that third or that God's eye view, wherever it wasn't from above by any stretch of the imagination. But for example, when Chiwetel Ejiofor had been sort of beat down by the Russians toward the end, they did a shot that was through the glass of the window of the car that he drove in, but there was nobody there. They did it. It was just a shot that they set up for, and we've talked about this in movies before. I think famously we talked about it in Child 44 way back when, where they would place a camera in the forest to show something that was happening. And it doesn't make any sense to an audience member to think, okay, we have a camera that's just shot through something for the sake of doing it. I guess it's meant to add an artful look to the scene, but for me, it just took me out of it. It was another thing of like, I don't have a person here that I'm taking a perspective of. I'm just stepping back and you're reminding me that I'm not part of this movie. So that was really disappointing as well. I think though, the reason why I wanted to talk about the show and not tell pieces, because I think you're going to be surprised when we get to my flick chart ranking, because I think I actually ranked it a little bit higher than we would have thought because it did such a great job of not spoon feeding me what we got there. In general, this movie didn't have anything that I liked, but I guess I kind of made apologies when I was going through it because I figured if you're someone who likes The Departed, or you like this kind of betrayal and corruption and cop stuff, you might actually kind of like this movie, especially if you're just going to stream it. I saw it on Amazon Prime, but for me, there's nothing in this movie for me to like.
Well, yeah, that's my big struggle with this because we talk about who you'd recommend this to, and I really struggle to recommend this to anybody because I think anyone that enjoys this genre is going to be just severely disappointed, particularly when you look at this cast. And I think what it promises to deliver in the, opening 15 or 20 minutes that it fails to deliver on, I struggle to recommend it. There are parts that I remember And, I think there's some visual, I won't say it's great camera work or something that was very distinctive, but it seemed to fit the genre really well, which is the opening heist that, I mentioned. I thought that played out very well in the car chase thereafter. But there's also a scene where they're in like housing projects, and there's a foot chase through there. And I thought, okay, it kept me engaged. It was interesting. It was exciting. What's going to happen? Where is this going? Are they going to catch the guy? Is somebody going to get shot? How is this going to play out? Those are the two parts of this film that I really remember as I'm enjoying this movie. And that's it. Everything else is a lot of, again, you've got a lot of dialogue that's alluding to things, which, yes, along with you, I appreciate that. I don't need it spoon-fed to me. But if you're going to allude to things and give me those clues, there's got to be a payoff or delivery to them. And I feel like it did not do that. I am able to piece everything together, but there's no reward to figuring those things out. There's no reward to starting to, know that when Kate Winslet talks about her sister's poor choice in men, when she's talking to Chiwetel, that she's actually
talking about Gal Gadot.
Yeah, right. That she's talking about, his ex and, her poor choice of men. She's basically insulting him. And I catch that later on, and I thought, okay.
But there's no way for you to know that when she's having that speech.
Right.
There's zero.
And so then I expect, sort of the payoff of that to come later, of another interaction between the two, now that I have been given enough clues to piece that together, that, okay, now I'm going to see them interact in a way where having that knowledge now is going to benefit me some way. And no, it doesn't. And it just, in my estimation, this is a film that just, I hate to say this, just fails to deliver on so many levels. And I want to give credit to a film that has potential, but there's just so many things that I can't say, yes, it's a poor film, but there's this thing that's redeeming about it. And I can't point to anything that's redeeming in the performances. I don't want to say they're phoning it in, but there was nothing really outstanding that I can point to. They've played they've played these types of characters before, so I've seen this before. So give me something new and
Gal
fresh.
Gadot is the only thing, because you may have heard me clicking, but I literally was looking at her press photos as we were talking about this, because she is still stunning as ever. And she has maybe 4 lines in the entire film, but she delivers them fantastically. She because she's not overdoing it, right? She's very simple in playing her role. Whereas like you think about Woody Harrelson or Kate Winslet or even Aaron Paul, playing this Gabe Welch character, where it's like, he's so over the top in what he's doing, and I like him so much, but it's like too much, man. Reel it back.
Yeah. This is a big disappointment for me, which is a rarity here on the Trailer Rewind. Usually we find these hidden gems that we can easily recommend to people and say, yes, go find this on streaming. You're going to enjoy it. It's perfect for an afternoon or for a friend.
So I think that the big thing here is, after you hear us talk about this, you should look at this cast and find these people that you like, because there's so many people in this cast, and they spread, like you mentioned, Marvel, DC, Walking Dead. There's even, there's a whole bunch of different stuff here. There's they span the pop culture landscape for having an actor that you're going to like, and they're all likable people. There's, these are all people that people go to see movies about. So if you're willing to try it out, that would be a reason. And if you like the sort of cop betrayal drama, shoot 'em up kind of thing, you might actually have some simple enjoyment with this movie. But if you're looking for a story or that kind of, or you want some really great performances or something, I would say go back to Felony. Right, we saw that last month, and I think Felony has a different level of storytelling and a different level of meaning. I really like that movie. This one is more, it's sort of, here it is. Here's the straightforward betrayal thing. You just come and take a look at this. That's what this movie's all about.
Whereas Felony was content with, I'm going to tell a simple story with a few characters and get sort of into the dynamics of their relationships with each other, which I think, as you so eloquently put it, what people are crap. That's just humans are crap, right? Here we're trying to, this film is trying to have complex stories and, multiple, interactions with people and stories crossing over, and it's striving for so much, but falling so far short where you could easily take this and simplify it and focus on just one storyline, and maybe that would work so much better, but it tried to accomplish far too much and didn't deliver on any one part of it. And so that's really why I just, can't recommend this at all to anyone. And the thing is, I don't hate it so much that it's like, oh, I regret it. That's 2 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back. And I'm angry about losing that time because I was bored, but at least I was hopeful that there was the potential to deliver on a promise. And I guess it wasn't so much that I was, going to turn it off and walk away and say, there's no point to this. I kept waiting for the payoff. And I guess that's probably my biggest frustration is I kept waiting because I keep seeing the potential and I'm waiting for the payoff and it never delivers, versus a movie that just is clearly not going to, in that where I would say, oh, don't even bother. I guess you can allow yourself to be led down that path of, illusion that there's something greater happening in this movie. And maybe that will deliver for some people. They'll be able to get that, but not for me on this one.
Well, so now after talking about this, if we go to Flickchart, like you're going to be really surprised at where my Flickchart is. And after actually us talking about it, I feel like I should re-rank it, but I'm not going to, because I want the rationale to come up to talk about why I put it where I did. So it landed at 130 for me out of 175, which puts it at 26%, which sounds low, right? But that puts it right underneath Odd Thomas, which I agree it's not as good as Odd Thomas, but it puts it above Cuban Fury. And I think the reason, and I liked Cuban Fury too, but I want to say that, I think I was making apologies for this movie while I was ranking it, because I was trying to say that this movie was not made for me. Right. And I can recognize that. So I was trying to give it at least some credit for doing that. But I think that if I went back and re-ranked it after looking at it, the thing that bounced it up here is that it came down against another Trailer Rewind movie, which was The Two Faces of January. And I felt like I wasn't qualified enough in this genre to know if it was lesser than The Two Faces of January, because I remember the only thing that I really liked about The Two Faces of January was the artful camera work. So I said it was better than that, but honestly, and after our conversation, I probably would put it lower. Where did it end up for you?
So it sank to the bottom.
Oh wow, it's that bad.
311 out of 312, which puts it at 0%.
Holy smokes.
So I went through it once and it ended up a little bit higher, but there was a couple things where I thought, no.
You did re-rank it.
I did. I said, I'm not happy with this ranking, because somewhere along the way I said, well, maybe it's better than this. Well, you know what it was? It was the Anomalisa factor. It comes up against Anomalisa. And the first time I said, no, I'll put this over Anomalisa, because I don't think I'm going to watch Anomalisa again.
Never again. Right.
But then as I thought about it, I said, well, no, but Anomalisa is not a film I'm going to watch again, but it succeeded and did something that was I guess you say enjoyable. It's challenging.
I would never say film. Enjoyable with that movie. But it was
or entertaining. Yes, it was creative, and I was not disappointed because it delivered what I was expecting from it. So when I re-ranked and said, "No, you're not," I'm going to pick Anomalisa over this, then it sort of fell straight to the bottom. So it's interestingly so my bottom film of all time right now is All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which was a horror slasher teen movie. And then, so it's above that, and just below, another horror film, The Ruins, which was about teenagers in Central America with the plants and stuff. So so it's down in there. So I gave it 1 star. I was thinking maybe 2, but I'm like, no, 1, because I'm not going to, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So that's where.
So again, what I would put it is 2.5, but I'd put it 2.5 with a dislike.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I'm sitting on it.
Whew. Yeah.
Well, you had to watch it in multiple sittings. That's too bad. That's frustrating.
Yeah. Because I just got bored, and I was like, okay, I'm watching it later in the evening. I'm like, I'm gonna fall asleep. I got to stop this and just take a break, because I this where we are in the story, I should be engaged and compelled with, like, we're in Act 2, we're getting to Act 3. This is gonna
desensitized by all that gun violence.
I don't know. So yeah, I'm ready to clear this from my palette, my visual palette, and get something else. So
there's good stuff coming up. It's a big month.
Yeah.
Next week, Deadpool 2 comes out. I am going to be in Sweden, but I think I might try to see it in Sweden to see. Well, first of all, I don't know if it is released worldwide, so I have to see about that. But I'm really interested to see if it's different in Sweden too, because I'll definitely watch it here.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So there's that.
Oh, yeah.
And then Solo's the week after that. So it's a big
Yeah.
May. I'm going to see both those movies for sure.
Big fun film. So I'm looking forward to those. Yes, there's plenty to be looking forward to. So I'm going to stop looking back at this and look forward to all the great fun things that we have going on. So
Very good.
yes. All right. Well, everybody, all of our listeners out there, please, you can skip 999 unless you really die hard for
Like those people. If you like those people,
action
it's a
film.
long list.
Yes.
Great cast.
But yes, please head over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. It helps other film fans discover us, and we hope you've enjoyed our 999 discussion. I want to give a special thanks to Pete Wright for editing our episodes and making us always sound good.
The Good Doctor.
If there's something about this film that we missed, if you've seen this and you've got a good counter argument, or if there's something about this you wish we'd discuss, please let us know on Facebook or Twitter at The Next Reel. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us where we're wrong. Make some points for us to defend this film or
fight with us on this one. Let's hear it.
Exactly. Yes, there we go. Well, JJ, it's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Have a great night.
Hondo.